Welcome to Tech Talk with R&E Automated. I'm your host, Jordan Dieterle. Join us as we dive into the world of automation and manufacturing, bringing you expert insights from industrial professionals and business leaders. Whether you're a business owner, engineer, or simply passionate about technology, this podcast is your go-to source for the latest trends and innovations in the field. Welcome, everybody, to Tech Talk with R&E Automated Systems. Today, I have Juan Mojica, our guest. He is a director-level engineering manager here at R&E Automated. How you doing today, Juan?
Hey, Jordan. Doing great. Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Yeah, yeah, that's good, man. I'm glad you're here. So, Juan, I wanted to hear your story about how you have built a career here at R&E as a director level of engineering. I know you have three degrees. They say one in welding, one in business, and one in business analytics. Can you please tell me about how your story is and how you grew your career?
Yeah, absolutely. So actually, I started working for General Motors in Mexico for my last semester of school. I was going for mechanical and electrical engineering, but I started as a welding engineer in like December. And then one of my mentors was a guy named Bill Thornton. He was working for a contract for GM, and he guided me and showed me around and everything. Uh, I just worked with him for that one first project, and then we took our separate paths until about 5 years later, when he was now with R&E, and he recommended me to R&E, and they reached out to me, and then we were able to agree. I took a leap of faith, leaving my big name company, going to R&E, and the rest is history, as they say, right? I've been with R&E for going 14 years, so it's been a while. While I was on the road as a welding engineer, leading project installation for integrators, basically, I decided to go back to school, and I did my MBA. And while I was at it, I added another in business analytics, just trying to bridge the gap between management and the technical background that I had.
Yeah, I like that because, I mean, you and I have worked hand in hand on a lot of projects, and I noticed that business analytics is it's insane how in depth it becomes. I mean, I've watched you do some crazy things with like Excel and everything. How do you see that playing a big role in automation, and how has it helped you in your career with that? I mean, I've watched you do some really amazing things, at Gestamp, and I know you did some stuff at Ford, and it's really helped. I mean, even at the plant level with HR. So how does that really play a big role in your career?
Well, I mean, a lot of information is there. It's just we don't collect it, or we don't collect it properly, and if we do, we don't know how to use it, right? So
Mm-hmm.
it's been told that what you cannot measure, you cannot control, right? So the first step is to gather data, start looking at different variables that are of interest to you. But then what do you do with those data? You have to concentrate, analyze it, and most importantly, take actions out of it. So that's what I've tried always to do. Depending on what I'm looking and what I'm working at, I try to define what are my main variables, and I always do a little test and see if that's exactly what I'm looking for. I change, but once I get my model, getting all the information, doing analysis, and then go forward. That's been my motto, and I really enjoy doing that. And it's very interesting, all the insights that you can pull out of from just raw data if you know what to do and how to analyze it, how to model it, and especially how to create actionable things, and actually do something with the data, not just say, hey, I have the data.
Yeah, no, that's really good. I mean, it's always helpful, and I mean, I've always sat down and I'm like, oh, I need to do this, and I'm like, hey, I know Juan can do that for me, or he can really help me get this done. So yeah, it's really good. So I know that you also did that, like with that, business degree, it excelled your career, and you also helped create like avenues within the plant, say for with R&E's plants, to say our service division. Can you tell me a little bit more on how you did that and what the process like to get like our audits approved and potentially like creating our apprenticeship program?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is what we're talking, having data and analyzing and using it for what you need. A lot of our customers
Mhm.
are looking into automation 4.0 and all that
Mhm.
that entails, right? But if you collect those data but you don't do anything with it, you're just collecting a bunch of ones and zeros, if you will, right? So in the plan level is the same. When you are doing something or you're trying to get, like in this case, an audit approval, you want to pass with your IATF, your ISOs, you want to make sure that you're collecting the data, you're following the processes that you're supposed to do it, right? One of the first things that you have to do is like kind of like a look back, say where you at right now, and compare to where you should be, and do your gap analysis and make your plan to move forward and keep going. And what I've seen is that a lot of times the people is there, the process are there, but what is lacks is the experience, the knowledge, the training. And as you mentioned, in the field we have you know multiple people working in different plans, different things. So all you need is kind of like learn the basics and have the right attitude to solve the problems, to face the new problems, challenges, and keep learning. Have always a learning attitude. Throughout my career, like I mentioned, I was helped. I had a mentor, and I always been willing to help people. And I always try to think I'm gonna learn from you as much as I'm gonna try to teach you. I never try to approach anything like, oh, I'm the one that knows it all and do it my way or highway, right? No, the opposite. Even younger kids with no experience in the field, but they have a different mindset. They have a different point of view. So you end up learning from everybody, or you tell them what you know, and they come up with with out of the box thinking. It's like, why you don't do it like that? And instead of just dismiss them and say, yeah, no, you don't know. You're the new kids. I'm teaching you. I'm always like, you know what? That's a great question. Let's question back why we do things the way we do it. And
Mhm.
we notice that going in towards the apprenticeship, we notice that we have a lack of um, fresh talent coming up the ladder,
Mhm.
if you will.
Yeah.
And a lot of the kids nowadays, they have a lot to offer. They just don't have the proper instruction, but they're born with electrical devices, the electronics they have with the computers, the cell
Yeah.
phones, and everything. So for them it's more natural just to kind of like, oh, I know how this works. They may not know it from a technical level, but they do know it. They do use them every time. So you take that with some ideally with some community college instruction, you can create the basis for a great technical guy on the field. So the apprenticeship program that we created is supposed to help with this. You give the basics, you show how to do it,
Mhm.
and it's a 2-year program. And at the end of the 2-year program, they actually have to integrate a brand new cell, and it's going to be having a lot of issues and problems that they have to figure out and troubleshoot, and just figure their way around. And along that, there will be accompanied by seasoned uh, electrician, PLC, or robot programmer, or weld engineer to help them learn on the job, and also more importantly, help them learn how to keep learning, how not to take anything for granted and just keep going from there.
Yeah, I mean, you and I both know that we've excelled in our careers in teaching and training younger individuals. I mean, we both have been on jobs where it's like, we're working and next thing you know, we're I guess how would I put it is say taking ourselves away from the job that we were there to do and having a younger guy do it because we're training them to do the job for us and then we're going to find other solutions within the plant that we need to find. So we're becoming a solution for a lot of plants or a lot of customers that R&E serves and our clients, which is helpful, but sometimes they say we run ourselves off and we're training the other people, which is always good. I mean, because then we're on to the next big and better
Yeah.
thing, and that's kind of where we've always evolved, right, and grown in our career. Um, So basically, we're building this upscale uh, apprenticeship program to elevate our workforce for our customers, and it's almost like it's at our cost to train these younger individuals, but we're helping them in turn and get building skilled guys for R&E as well, and they're paying for them, but it's helpful because they're getting a skilled guy at the end that they could potentially say want to hire, or they like them or whatnot, right? So I think we're definitely becoming a part of a big solution for companies, because we do experience that, and that's our line of work, is trying
Mhm.
to find you know contract contract people for these companies to help them support their maintenance and support their engineering, which is always good. What do you think of the automation 4.0 coming about, and how is that going to affect the future of automation with our business model and growing in the future, especially with this apprenticeship program? I think we're at that edge where it's definitely coming, and I'm curious what your thoughts are of it.
No, it's very interesting. Like you mentioned, this apprenticeship program that we're developing, we're going to be doing with some partners. Some of them might be short term, some might be full term. And actually help train these guys in their own facilities on the job training with the guidance of seasoned guys from us. At the end of the day, it's a win-win situation for everybody, right? Because we win because we develop more talent. They win because they develop talent that they know their equipment, and the society wins because they have more people capable to do these new jobs. And automation 4.0 is just the next step. Right now we're on the verge. It's a buzzword, but very little people really understand. So for automation 4.0 to really be successful, has to become with the data analysis and the actions come out of it, right? For us in automation, we're coming similar to what happened with relay logic and the old stuff with the PLC and all that. Now it's the next
Yeah,
level. How
step
you
five.
take this, yes, how you take this and actually make it more intelligent. Right now the automation, pretty much you have to program it and it just does back repeat, make some decisions based on what you program. With automation 4.0, the idea is to get to that next level with that data gets analyzed, and those instructions or those changes can be done lifetime. And especially now with the AI and whatnot, you can put some set of rules but are more wide open. We have time having to program every single scenario. You just have some rules, you have the analysis, you're getting feedback as the robot is working and is doing. You can measure variation and say, okay, I'm getting out of tolerance, how do I fix this? And it goes to their analysis, the feedback loop, and say, okay, I need to adjust this much, and then comparison goes from it. So the potential is there, and having these new kids, like I was mentioned, coming, they're used to play with joysticks with computers. Some of them are doing programming since
Yeah.
middle school, high school, so they know how to work around it. It's just kind of like show him, that's unlimited potential if you keep going and you just keep using this in an industrial setting versus a leisure setting.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, heck, I had my younger children is say building little robots now at the dinner table, and they're like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "Hey, you want to help? Build this robot." And they're sitting there playing with it and enjoying it, and then they're like, "Well, how does it do this?" Right? So it's always that continuous learning for these younger individuals coming into the automation space, and wanting they're intrigued. They're wanting to see what we're doing on a daily. I mean, I'm assuming that you even experience that with your children, and you're showing them every day that, hey, this is what I do on the daily in automation, and they're just intrigued to want to, or I guess wouldn't say intrigued. They're just curious, and they want to see, well, how do you solve that problem? Well, when you're adjusting this little bit of a level here, and you're doing it from a laptop in an office, they're shocked instead of being out on the plant floor sometimes. And that's, I definitely see that as, automation 4.0, definitely.
Oh yeah.
It's an interesting thing. How does that play a role into AI?
So
Where do you see that coming from?
yeah, so AI goes in hand with this automation 4.0 because you we're going to generate a lot of data, and it's going to be almost
Mhm.
impossible to be um, looking at it and reacting in real time. That's when AI comes very, very handy on this, because you set the rules. At the end of the day, you're the one managing, and you're the one saying what needs to happen and how it needs to happen, right? With AI, what you do is you train your model, and there's a couple different models that you can train. Some want more supervision, some others has less supervision. It's more like self-learning. But once you set up your model and you start getting the data and you start analyzing, they just go and take it on, right? Especially with all these neural networks that emulate exactly how we think, how our brain
Mhm.
works. And it's funny because even those that are really deep into the neural networks, I mean, you have the math, the matrices, all the linear algebra functions and whatnot, but they don't really know for sure how they work, because they just kind of like took a life on their own. It's just about relationships, and how they build connections between the cells, and the more cells and the more levels, the more advanced they get. So at the end of the day, they can adjust the information and the parameters looking for an outcome, and it's going to be done on the fly. So that's going to be very, very interesting how this actually takes off and goes. And at the end of the day, we're still going to be there to supervise, to moderate, to set up those parameters that we want them to function within.
Yeah, and it's actually going to create new high profile jobs, that these younger individuals will have to take over at some point. So this apprenticeship, it's huge for the next generation that want to come into the automation space to grow a career, because they're going to be the ones that are going to have to continue to advance AI and automation 4.0, and continue to advance robotics and PLC. I mean, I was used
Mhm.
to relay logic, Slick 500, RS Logic 500. I was in those early days, just starting, and then the next thing Studio comes out, and I'm like, oh man, this is a lot easier, at once you learn it. So yeah, it's always good to advance. I mean, you experienced that even with like Bosch and the welding side, in creating a
Totally.
whole thing for General Motors, and then you're coming to R&E doing the same thing, working at different plants, working like with older systems that it's like, man, this is really old, and I've seen some of those. So, and so have you, and it's just like it's very interesting how far technology is coming. And what do you see when you see the technology advancing? Do you see that we might not be able to keep up with it one day, or is it something that you're thinking that, hey, we have to put in safety measures to make sure that we're keeping track of the data and matching you know the safety and automation together, to make sure that we're not going to take it too far? Because I mean, obviously you and I both know that it can come too far sometimes, that
Mhm.
people could potentially get hurt in automation space. So what is your thoughts on that, and keeping track of that data?
That's a very interesting question. At the end of the day, I think, even though we're talking about like way advanced and how it's gonna do everything
Mhm.
automatically or to speak of analyzing data and reacting, at the end of the day, you still have to put some parameters and some safeguards there, because you don't want them like the robot, like, oh, I'm gonna keep going because I'm going zero point 0.5 mils. I'm gonna keep going minus five. It's gonna be a limit. You don't want to damage the product, damage other equipment, and more importantly, not you don't want to damage uh, a person. You don't want to inflict any
Yeah.
damage to a person. You have to have some limits and some safeguards, of course, and also learning the basics. They're still gonna always work out. Like you were mentioning before, like you started with relay logic, and then PLC 5, and then the studio, and then at the end of the day,
Mhm.
knowing the basics, how they work, what they should work, where they come from, helps you understand the rest. So we can be talking about AI and taking, analyzing all the data from manufacturing 4.0 and doing decisions and all that. But if you don't know why or how this is gonna be reacting, you don't know the basics, that just becomes a big black box, right? Nobody knows how it works or what it does. However, if you understand the basics, you can understand exactly what it's doing, and then you can control it, and you can make the best use out of it for automation, for your product, for your service.
Yeah, and it's also making sure that we're keeping these guys trained. To say training is a huge part of that. So yeah, that makes total sense. Well, Juan, how else do you see the automation space continuing to grow with, the apprenticeship, is say the automation 4.0, AI, and where do you see the automation space going in the future? I know we're excelling at a tremendous rate, but I mean, even like the growth in, our local area of Greenville, South Carolina, what do you think, where do you see the growth coming? Because I mean, we have customers all over here at R&E, but where do you see that coming or going in the future here? I'm just curious because we are talking, this automation 4.0, and it's coming to a lot of different plants that we are in. And I'm just kind of curious where you see automation going. And I mean, we have customers that are just starting and customers that have had it for years, right? So where do you see it continuing going? And obviously we need more skilled people. So where do you see that?
So definitely automation, it's gonna become even more widespread. What happened with COVID-19, during the pandemic, you couldn't get enough people. That's when you realize that, we're limited by the amount of people, especially skilled labor. So having these apprenticeship programs, open the door for more people that may not have the formal instruction or the formal experience, to do a career change or start a new career, and then you just develop from there. As far as automation, where it goes with customers and local suppliers, I think it's gonna keep going. Right now there are highly automation facilities that already start looking. Those are probably the early adopters. Start looking at 4.0 AI. There's a lot of other smaller companies that they're just start looking at automation, how they can make it better, because they realize that they cannot rely just on people. Their labor shortages, skills shortages, increase the production efficiencies, foreign competition. So you just got to keep innovating and innovating. So as the new companies or the bigger companies move into the new spaces of automation 4.0 and AI, getting all this, there's smaller companies that come behind and start adopting the path that they already walk, right? With this regular automation, with robotic, with PLC, and the cobot industry is another space that has been expanded so much. Having these little robots that can work together with people and can help in some activities while they still do some minor work. So at the end of the day, I think there's still a lot of potential to keep growing in the automation business. The new stuff is not gonna replace necessarily; it's just gonna open a new path, and some companies gonna start moving there earlier than the other. But there's always smaller companies that follow behind and adopt these technologies a little bit later because of budget and because of other stuff.
Yeah, I mean, even the local community colleges, they're like begging for instructors right now just to train these young individuals. So I definitely see it, coming into the future for sure. But yeah, I say it definitely is a huge opportunity for young individuals to grow into the automation space. It's a huge opportunity for the companies to increase their production, and say support what they have coming, and making sure that they understand that automation is going to be a part of their system no matter what.
Mhm.
um but what is have you like ever considered, like, or have your kids shown interest? Because even mine have shown interest in this, and it's kind of like something that I feel like even schools now are starting to adapt in like younger ages. Like I think they
Mhm.
have like uh fifth grade they have this robotics course that you can take, and I'm like, that isn't crazy. That's crazy. Are you kind of experiencing that same thing too?
Oh yeah, yeah. My son actually applied for the robotics class. They have like couple option classes that they can take. He didn't get it because it was so demanded. So he's gonna apply again next year. But definitely, there's a lot of expectation, and those robotic classes are a little more geared to like the little robots that do competitions, or the world of robots that just fight each other. But at the end of the day, the principles are the same. So it's
Yes,
very
yes,
interesting
they
that
are.
how all the STEM, or actually I think they call it STEAM here because they add the A, uh, but they're putting a lot of focus on those, and it's great because industry really needing a lot of people within the STEM branch, and engineers, technicians, scientists, and all that. So there's a lot of room for growth, and the good thing is, like you said, my kids are getting interested. They hear me talking about it. They ask questions about robotics and automation and even welding, which is what I did for many years, and how that works. What do I do when I go to a plant and or visit a customer? Is what do you do? What do they do there? How do they build this? And I show them sometimes videos on YouTube. Oh, how they build this stuff. So that's great. They're showing interest. They're young, but they're really curious about it. So that, I think that's great for everybody.
Yeah, it really is, because it's gonna excel, the next generation, especially like you getting, they're starting off training at, in their fourth, fifth grade, and next, they're going to career center, because I went to career center when I started, and then next, it's, hey, college, and they're already gonna have a huge base of learning automation, if whether they decide to go as a PLC programmer, a robot programmer, a welding engineer, even a maintenance technician. I mean,
Mhm.
electrician, or even doing welding. That's a great start to a career, and it's, you can make really good money and enjoy your career. I watch people and they're like, I love what I do, and I'm like, same here. It's a joy to actually, watch a car come off the line that you're like, I helped build that, right? So,
Oh,
I mean, you probably experience that joy just as much as I do when I'm doing this, in the field, and I mean, I've, talked to multiple people and they say the same thing. So, but yeah, well, Juan, I appreciate you taking the time to talk to us here on R&E, or Tech Talk with R&E. It was a pleasure. If you want to have any, or do you have any recommendations for our visitor or our guest here?
oh, I just wanted to like add some points. Our apprenticeship program ideally will in the next phase start engaging kids already in high school. So start what you're saying, just kind of like getting started from the beginning, and I kind of like, I'm excited to see where this leads, like, and absolutely thrilled to be part of this new development, and if in a way we can touch the lives of many young people and help them on a career path, that's just amazing.
Yeah. No, I agree. Well, is there a way, any way that you want to give, our guests a way to reach you, or say just, reach out to, your R&E email, or say anything like that, or,
I think
LinkedIn or something like
LinkedIn
that?
LinkedIn is probably
Oh,
the best. I'm there as Juan Carlos Mojica, Mojica, and yep, just hit me up, add me, and if you want to talk a little bit more about this or any other subjects, I'm always open for a new conversation.
awesome. Well, thank you for interviewing with Tech Talk with R&E. I'm your host, Jordan Dieterle. Have a good one, everybody. Welcome to Tech Talk with R&E Automated. I'm your host, Jordan Dieterle. Join us as we dive into the world of automation and manufacturing, bringing you expert insights from industrial professionals and business leaders. Whether you're a business owner, engineer, or simply passionate about technology, this podcast is your go-to source for the latest trends and innovations in the field.